would we argue that there's some correlation between counties that work with the government and counties that do not work with the government? Say, for example, ever since we came to the broad-based government, case in point is Homa Bay County. That county has transformed in a span of 2 years. This is something that we didn't see in the past. So would you say that if you're not, quote unquote, working with the government, then it's also a disadvantage to you?
You know, that's a very important question you've asked, because if you want to know the truth, you look at the COVID period. When COVID broke, and for instance, people like us in Kiambu, we were always number 2 in terms of numbers. We went out to the national government and we said, look, if Nairobi overflows, it's going to come to Kiambu. So we need your support. We need to work together. And there was a very, very, very close working relations between me, CS Mutahi Kagwe, and all the, the devolution department and so on. And we ended up dedicating Tigoni as a COVID center, where we got resources from the national government, to equip. And we got resources into other hospitals. It is true. Because you see, what has been devolved are those sectors within Schedule 4, not everything. A lot of resources still remains with government. At the same time, there is huge amount of development partners funds that comes through Treasury and eventually to counties. And the counties have no say. The development partners will not go direct to the counties. It has to go. So if there is a positive correlation between good working, because all counties work with national government, but it is a good working relations with the county government and the national government that sometimes brings in some of the resources that otherwise are not devolved. And I'll give you an example again from Kiambu. As we were sitting there, we were looking at Kirigiti Stadium. This is a stadium of historic significance. There is no one single president, including the current sitting one, who has not passed through Kirigiti before you become president. It is a historic place. And, it was just an open field. And, we went to the national government and we said, please, give us some funds to put up Kirigiti Stadium. And there we were. I don't know how it is today, but Kirigiti Stadium was put in by the national government and handed over to the county government for management. As we were talking about COVID, we saw there was a big problem because Kiambu, level 5, 40–50% of the patients there were coming from Nairobi. And you cannot stop them. The maternity is full of people from Nairobi. You cannot stop them. So we decided it is now time that we put up a hospital further away, and people of Nairobi should forgive me for this, further away from Nairobi. And we saw there is need for a level 4 hospital in Githunguri. And we went to the national government and we discussed with the national government, and the national government allocated us 600 million to do a level 4 hospital in Githunguri. And if you look at roads, the way roads have been opened, I mean, look at the Western Bypass, look at the Southern Bypass. They all pass through Kiambu, and I'm talking about Kiambu because that's where I know. There is and really, what you would urge governors, and because right now, IBEC, which is intergovernmental business, the one that brings in together the national and through the deputy president. Right now they are discussing issues, and the deputy president, I think, has the heads on what is happening in the counties. That would be the best forum, which then would bring in more collaboration between the counties and the national government and identify some of the bigger gaps, because it really depends on one major national project to change all the small ones that you as a county are dealing with. But there's also another issue which is affecting devolution. So we have talked about working relations, and we have talked about those issues being raised at IBEC, which is chaired by the deputy president. There is another issue. You need to improve coordination between the county governments and the national government. The coordination is not there. Yes, IBEC, as a requirement, the deputy president holds monthly meetings with the counties to discuss the budget, to discuss all of those issues to do with budgets, flow of funds, and so on. But after IBEC, there are supposed to be other kind of coordination mechanisms, all culminating into the summit, which is, the meeting between the governors and the president.
Yeah.
Now, in Raw, that is supposed to be biannual, 2 meetings every year. Sometimes you have gone for many years without. During COVID again, we actually did, for the 1.5 years that there was COVID, we did about 8 summits. So when there was crisis, there was summits. Now, today, it is a requirement that you do an intergovernmental forum on agriculture, because agriculture is totally devolved.
Yeah.
The last one that we did it when I was chair of COG Agriculture Committee in February of 2022. There has never been another one. That was the 4th one through the whole devolution period. There has never been another one. Now, if agriculture is such an important sector in this country and there is no coordination between the county governments and the national government, how do you ensure that the targets of the national government are met by the counties? How do you ensure that a county will produce what it has a comparative advantage on? So that is why, in addition to working together, we need better coordination and regular coordination between the county governments and the national government.
Okay, well, just still on this point of Homa Bay as a county right now hosting the Devolution Conference, we've seen in the months leading up to the Devolution Conference, leaders, especially from the Mount Kenya region, owing to the relationship that the president has with the region, currently saying that there's some sort of discriminative sort of alignment when it comes to these counties. At some point, we had one of the legislators or the leaders from Mount Kenya saying they're seeing roads and developments being taken to the Luo Nyanza region, but when they come to this region, they want to empower people with cereals. So when you're looking at that and basically tying what we're seeing in Homa Bay County, do you think it's politically motivated, or it comes from a point where the president generally feels that this is a region that has been quote-unquote marginalized for a long time, so it's time to put more focus there?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the criteria.
Yeah.
And I have been out of a political scene for quite some time now. Yeah. I'm not very sure what has been done and what has not been done. I would rather not talk about the empowerment programs, because you see, I think we need to differentiate, and this also happens in counties. We need to differentiate between tokenism and transformational change.
Yes.
If you are a leader, if you are in government, and if you are governor or head of state, I think what you are looking for is transformational change, catalytic change. What you are looking for is let's do this to the community, as a result of which they will move themselves to the next level. In economics, we call it, what is your theory of change? If you give farmers seeds, free seeds, what is your theory of change? Is it that every year for the next 20 years, you have to be giving seeds? Or is there a way that you are looking at this and ensuring that it gets to a point where it becomes self-sustaining? So I think we should differentiate between the tokenism, or whatever you call it, the empowerment, and transformational change. Some people argue, some school of thought argue, that what we are calling tokenism is actually a catalyst to for change. Like, for instance, if you give somebody a Boda Boda, then that person is transformed automatically. Well, but the question is, how can you scale it up? How can you replicate it? If you have a population of 14 million Boda Bodas, how can you do that? What you need to do is to come up with a system where maybe the ability to borrow for a Boda Boda guy to own a Boda Boda is increased, so that many more can go and afford to get that. So I don't want to get into the comparative development of Homa Bay or Kiambu or Kitui. But the point really is, and I think the president said it the other day, when I think on Sunday he was in a church in Kiambu, in Nemuru, and he said, I'll have a meeting with you guys. I promised so many roads, I promised so many whatever, and he said, I'll have a meeting with you guys, and we'll have a meeting and we'll take stock of what has happened and what has not happened. So I would rather wait for that meeting, rather than say this development has gone there and this has not gone there.
Okay. And this is not in any way to pinpoint anything to the current administration in Kiambu County. You served that county as a governor. When you're talking about this tokenism instead of transformational change, we've seen Kiambu County has been pegged with a lot of issues, a lot of scandals, day in, day out with the current administration. Would you say you're seeing a similar thing in Kiambu County right now in terms of this tokenism that you're against?
You know, again, I'm not a judge. I can tell you that in my own way, I had a theory of change when I started, because I'm the one who started the distribution of seeds. I didn't give chicken, I didn't give pigs, piglets. I started with the distribution of seed and fertilizer, and I introduced a community-led extension program called Village-Based Advisory Program. The objective was that as we start to give you some levels of inputs, then the people who eventually become distributors of those inputs are the village-based advisors, who would then follow with technical advice, so that over the next 2-3 years, we will be reducing our input as the whole program becomes sustainable. That was our theory of change. And, you know, we thought that because we thought we would come back as governor, we thought that by the third year, which is now, that we would be seeing a flourishing agro-input, dealers and whatever in the county with minimal intervention by the county government. We were also looking at things like dairy. We brought all the dairy cooperatives together so that they can start thinking about centrally processing their milk, so that you can have a Kiambu brand of milk, which is very close to Nairobi. You know, if everybody else is waking up at 3 to get their milk to Nairobi, here we would probably wake up at 6 and get to Nairobi, faster than the others. The same with coffee and so on. So ours, the way we were saying and the way we had started these things were transformational. That at a certain stage we are going to exit, and the whole process will be sustainable, and it will be, self-perpetuating itself. I don't know whether that is what is happening today. I think if you give me a fish every day, I will eat your fish. But the question would be, when you don't give me a fish, where am I going to get the fish? So then the Chinese said, show them how to fish.
Okay. Well, as we are assessing the state of devolution, we can't miss to talk about the position that governors have been put in the recent past. And this is in relation to impeachment. It's basically gotten to a point where if the MCAs are not pleased with you, it's time to go. When you're looking at how devolution has been structured, there's been an argument that maybe it's time to put into law that there needs to be a period of time. A governor needs to be given time to serve or settle in before questions of impeachment can arise. Do you come from the same school of thought?
No, I think so. Well, yes and no. Because if it is a question of, there are several issues that have been raised whenever impeachment takes place. Whether it is misappropriation of funds or, it's, so many issues have been raised. Some of those issues, you cannot actualize them unless you have proven yourself. Okay? For instance, if they say development has not reached the people as per your manifesto, that can only wait for time. Okay? At the same time, you also need first, they have what? They have yellow card and they have red card. So they need time. You cannot be, we have seen instances where you are given red card as the first card. Okay? I think twice we are hoping that the third one is not coming. So there's a gradual. The yellow and the red card is a gradual process of showing you, I've warned you, please avoid what you are doing. If you don't avoid it, I'm going to issue you with a yellow card, a red card. So there needs to be that time to reflect and see. But where it is open abuse, misuse of funds, misappropriation of funds, and this can be done from the first day, it can be done from the first month, it can be done from, so it's a mixed bag. I'm really not sure. But for me, I think what we need to do, rather than even think about time and all of that, what we need to do is to strengthen our institutions. Let's strengthen the county assembly so that they can be able to come up with key issues of concern that really make sense before they pass on that motion now to the Senate.
Yeah.
At the Senate, we have seen a bit of political maneuvers on a very practical issue to do with the impeachment. Again, let us have a very strong Senate. I do not believe that a governor should be discussed in the whole house.
The plenary.
In the plenary.
Yeah.
I think you need to probably to have a committee that really looks at the evidence, because you cannot table evidence in a whole house of 42 or whatever senators. So I think what we need to do is to strengthen. Then the question that raises, we raise here is, why is it only governors who have been impeached? We have never impeached a president. I've not seen impeachment of any other, I have not seen. Why is it that it's only governors who have been impeached? Is it that that process is more transparent at the county level and not anywhere else? So there must be something that we need to study and understand why this is happening. Is it probably that power has been devolved closer to the people, so that people, when the governor is misbehaving, that people can feel the heat faster than any other position? So all of these are issues that we need to raise. But I think it is important for us to make it difficult for somebody to be impeached because of personal issues or issues to do with political issues or issues that people are not just happy with you. There has to be some very substantive grounds for impeachment.
Well, still on this, the governor's sort of position, there's also another concern of the deputy governor. And a big concern around this is, these are just figures. These are just ceremonial figures. They are necessarily not that important in a county, not unless there's that grave importance where the governor is in absence. But when you're looking at this conversation around deputy governors being involved more in county operations, where do you stand on this? Have they been fully empowered, or their role is to purely be an assistant, a principal assistant to the deputy governor? The governor, rather.
There is no better person to comment about that than me.
Yes.
Because I started off as a deputy governor, and the arrangement between me and the governor then was that we are going to have, by the time we were campaigning, we were very clear on the roles that we are going to play, so that we can bring harmony and augment each other in moving forward.
Was this agreement, or were these agreements put on paper, or it was a gentleman's
agreement? It was put on paper. I can tell you that it was. We signed it, and also most of these things you cannot really document. You cannot just like they say you cannot register a relationship. You cannot register a relationship. So what happened was then. I went back and I looked at the role of the deputy governor as is stipulated within the Constitution. I looked at the role of the deputy governor as is stipulated within the County Governments Act. And I realized that I made a big mistake. Because the role of the deputy governor is really nothing. The Constitution says it's personal assistant to the governor. I don't know what personal assistant, PA.
The principal assistant.
Principal assistant to the, it's both PA, personal or principal. And therefore, it brings in critical issues. Because first, it's a relationship between two people. And if it happens that one is water and the other one is oil, it's very, very difficult to make it a homogeneous. You can't make it a soup. It's water and oil. It will always, one will be on top, the other one will be. So it's a relational thing. And it's not like, a relationship between a man and a woman that you have time to, understand one another and whatever. And so it's a very, very critical relationship. And the intent of the Constitution was such that these people will work together, the same way the president, but even the president and the deputy president has not been anything to talk about in terms of the relationship. So it really needs to be relooked. Now, when I was deputy governor and we had a caucus of deputy governors, we were divided. One lot of deputy governors was saying, yes, the role of deputy governors need to be registered. so that it is very clear when you come in whether you are going to be in charge of certain departments. Whether you are going to be in charge of foreign, whatever, it should be registered and it is known. But, the other school of thought was saying, how do you, if you are the governor, how do you then go in and know that you cannot have a say in this department and that department? And at the end of the day, you are going to be assessed as the governor of the county rather than the governor of certain departments. So, and then, that same school of thought used to say, you cannot register a relationship. A relationship is a relationship. So you go in there and you cultivate the relationship. In fact, a lot of people came in and they were giving me 48 rules of power. Thou shalt not overshine your whatever. But, the point really is, you have gone in for a joint ticket. Okay, you have brought in votes. Okay, you are not just picked after the governor was elected. You have brought in votes, and therefore those votes, those voters, who brought you in, needs to see you doing what you promised. So it's something that needs to be studied. But overall, I can tell you that we are wasting a lot of resources, as we have seen. We have seen deputy governors who have become governors, because even now there are a number of deputy governors who became governors. We have seen them, and they have become very, very effective. Look at the governor for Regio Marakwet. He was a deputy governor. Okay? Look at the governor for Bomet. Okay? He was a deputy governor. So we have seen deputy governors who have become governors, and so it's not a question of whether they are able or they are willing. It's really a question of whether the space is provided to work. A lot of people say you need kind of like the relationship you are having now between the deputy president and the president. And I like the arrangement that the deputy president doesn't have to be where the president is. This is a very interesting relationship. Even yesterday, I saw a comment, because yesterday the deputy president was in Tharaka, as the president was in Homa Bay. We never used to see that, okay? So it's kind of, some people say, no, it's something that you need to allow so that it's kind of is a relationship and there is trust, there is mutual trust. And if that is what you are looking for, there is a better way of looking at that rather than calling it a running mate.
Okay. All right. Well, Mheshimiwa, as we wind down on this conversation, I can't miss to talk about what many believe is the missing link, the one and only missing link in devolution, that is on-source revenue. When you're looking at on-source revenue, we've seen a number of counties struggle and not necessarily hit their targets. But looking at recent data, we're looking at counties generating about 45 billion, which represents 53% of the annual target, which stands at about 87 billion. So we've seen an increase of the generation of on-source revenue, despite having these many counties that are deemed small. So is this not an indication that what we're having right now is basically unintentional, lazy governors?
Well, yes and no. I think it is important for counties to enhance their own source revenue. Because essentially, if you are just depending on money that is coming from the national government, and what we are seeing now, which is a fact, that like we said, 7 shillings out of 10 goes to debts. Then the second thing is, we are now, schools are opening in a week's time. It's good that yesterday the president said that the first tranche of July funds has been released to the counties. But you get to a point where CS Badi will say that my first priority is to pay capitation. Okay, and the second priority is to pay whatever. And then you start to see counties delays, which should not be there, because the law is very clear that money should be given out by 15th of every month. But you start to think about sustainability. You start to think about ability of the county to go beyond depending on the national government, and it is important that they raise their own source revenue. We have seen instances where if you digitalize the receiving of own source revenue, you more than double it. But it's a double-edged sword. Where do you get own source revenue? It is you are charging services, you are charging certain levies and whatever. So you are taxing your people. So it is a balance that you don't overtax your people. You give them incentives, but it all depends on, are those people seeing where you are putting the money.
Okay.
You know, if for instance you are charging